Good morning, Mr. Lipinski, Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member Crawford, Chairman DeFazio, and all the members of this subcommittee. Thank you for inviting me to share our views on the present and future of Amtrak. And thank you for your leadership of a national conversation about Amtrak's future that's critical to tens of millions of people in hundreds of American towns. I'm Jim Mathews, President and CEO of the Rail Passengers Association. We're the oldest and the largest organization speaking for the more than 40 million Americans who rely on trains of all kinds. Our 28,000 members work every day for more trains, better trains, and stronger infrastructure. This makes communities safer, more accessible, more productive, and it improves the lives of everyone who lives and works in towns all across America. It's an exciting time to consider rail's future, but it's also a challenging time, fraught with risk if we make the wrong decisions, decisions that will be felt for decades to come. People are embracing rail to solve America's growing mobility problem. Passenger trains are enjoying their strongest support in decades. Amtrak had a record 32 million passengers this year, and ridership's up across much of the system. This Congress has demonstrated real vision in recent years by making sensible rail investments to serve people, not just cars. And it's not just Congress that's investing. There's great work being done by states and the private sector to bring next-generation service to America's three most populous states. Virgin's Bright Line between Miami and Orlando, Texas Central's all-private Houston-Dallas high-speed line, and of course the California high-speed rail project connecting San Francisco to Los Angeles. Better yet, Amtrak, for the first time in many years, is itself advancing a growth vision, looking ahead to more than just operating the same network it has for decades. We're excited when we talk with Amtrak leadership about, for example, expanding the Heartland Flyer or opening Colorado's Front Range service. We applaud this vision, and we will do everything we can to see more Americans in more places get more train service, with dedicated funding for new cities and frequencies in short corridor markets that are ripe for better service. But Amtrak sometimes talks about a future that leaves out many Americans, hinting that there aren't enough demand indicators to justify connecting places like Kansas or New Mexico to the rest of the country, or to staff call centers or smaller stations, or to feed passengers on longer journeys. Now, that might make sense for a private company, but we all know that Amtrak has a different mission. Congress created Amtrak expressly to provide service to places that need it and where the private sector cannot profitably provide it. A single mom in Walnut Ridge, Arkansas deserves to use the Texas Eagle just as much as a Wall Street banker using the Acela. It's one of our country's core values. And besides, it's not about whether a particular route makes money. It's about who makes money from a given route. Through research and modeling, we have quantified that return on equity for the taxpayer's investment all across the country. Just one example, we found that Amtrak's Empire Builder is worth $327 million every year to the economies of the states it serves, 6 times what we spend on it. And we've reported similar findings on other routes. Part of the problem may be policymakers' demand indicators. Current legislation requires Amtrak to minimize federal subsidies, to make states pay for routes under 750 miles, and to break even on food and beverage service. Let's be clear. Congress eliminated the profit requirement in 1978 when it modified the Rail Passenger Service Act. Congress said, quote, "This amendment recognizes that Amtrak is not a for-profit corporation." So let's stop talking about profits and use the reauthorization to address real challenges in Amtrak's future. On-time performance is the biggest threat, and a lot of the blame rests with the host railroads. Hosts have also hamstrung Amtrak on new service, declaring, for example, that it could cost $2 billion to connect New Orleans to Jacksonville. That's how much it cost NASA to send a rover to Mars. We need congressional leadership to set up a shared use advisory commission involving all stakeholders, including riders, to work out a truce so that Amtrak can get down to the business of connecting America. We also think it's time to help Amtrak enforce passengers' rights to be on time. It's time to enshrine Amtrak's national network mission into law. It's time to create a predictable, dedicated funding stream for rail travel. It's time to create and fund new service where it's needed, and to buy new coaches and dining cars. That includes fully funding Amtrak's outline to refresh and replace superliners. That can't come soon enough for our members, who carry self-help kits like mine when they travel. It's time to accelerate Amtrak's fleet plan. It's time for Congress to act to be sure local investments aren't stranded by network planning over which communities have little say. And it's time for more transparency and data-driven decision-making, both at Amtrak and at the FRA. It's time Amtrak adopted the avoidable costs accounting method required by statute. And we think FRA can be more effective if it can gather and report on railroad metrics in the same way that the FAA does for airlines. Today's Americans expect a modern, frequent, reliable, and safe rail system as part of a robust ecosystem of travel choices, from ride-sharing and bikes to cars, trains, and jetliners. It's what America deserves. We at Rail Passengers stand ready to work with authorizers and all stakeholders to make it happen. Thank you.